All right, welcome back, everybody, to the international group stages. On the second stream, we have Newbee facing up against EHOME. In fact, we've got an all-Chinese matchup to finish off the day, Blitz. Newbee facing up against EHOME, and then shortly after this, EHOME versus Vici Gaming.
We will have casted a lot of EHOME games by the end of this.
Yes, we will. We've got almost all the EHOME games, so if you guys love EHOME, you're lucky. Cap and Blitz are going to be your casters.
EHOME?
EHOME!
All right, so I will predict that EHOME will take Dazzle and Razor.
Dazzle and Razor.
Dazzle and Razor.
I'm down with that. You know, I was real quickly. I just actually want to go over an interesting stat. Oh my God, that's legit. That's legit. I mean, from what we've seen so far.
Yo, don't ruin this.
All right,
continue.
That was very well done, Blitz. What's Newbee pick up here?
Newbee?
Tuss is still in the pool.
I guess Tuss wouldn't be bad.
All right, or Shaker instead. So the Ember Spirit. I actually real quickly wanted to talk about the Ember Spirit with you, just because I thought it was a pretty interesting stat.
Yeah.
The Chinese are 4-0 with Ember Spirit.
Yes.
The non-Chinese teams 0-8. I mean, to have the Chinese.
Do you want to know why?
Yes.
Are you wondering why?
Yeah.
I'll tell you actually.
I want your analysis on that.
Okay. I've been thinking about that a lot actually, because I knew what you were gonna ask. Because I looked at that same stat and I was like, huh. And so I actually theorized because the Chinese teams have been playing the hero for longer. Like when I played in Korea, I used to play on the Chinese servers a lot. And I actually saw that quite often they would still pick Ember. Whereas when I moved back to the West in America, in Europe and stuff like that,
right?
I'm not even kidding. No exaggeration. In the last year at the 6 to 7K MMR poll with any of my accounts, I actually checked. I've only played against Ember 3 times since that time period. And so I think it's a lot more accepted to continue to play the hero there. And when you continue to play the hero there, you really get to see how it works. Whereas I feel like the Western teams are trying to adapt to that. Like, you know, we can still play it. Why are they running it? We should also try this. I don't want to say, it sounds harsh if I say like it, but it's like a monkey see, monkey do. You know, you see somebody do something, you want to do it and try to figure out why. But I feel like the Chinese players have more of a really straight up concept of why they're doing it, what they want to use it for. Like when I see them do it, they pick it very specific reasons. Like they're against a TA, they need something that'll break the refract really quickly. You got the Ember Spirit. You're up against a Queen of Pain and an Anti-Mage, 2 heroes. For example, Anti-Mage will go Battle Fury, then Manta. So you have a time period where he's not going to have any escape. So you can lock him down with the Sleight of Fist chains. They're very specific combinations that work in that order. And I feel like the Chinese teams have that a little bit more grounded.
Whereas maybe some of the non-Chinese teams, for example, PL's on the other team, we need a Battle Fury hero. Ember Spirit works, right? It's more of a simplistic, okay, let's, you know, just pick this up and not maybe experiencing the full, like, not having the full complicated plan really set for that Ember Spirit. All right, so our second set of bans here going to be the Clockwork and Bloodseeker by Newbee. Storm Spirit and Darkseer taken out by EHOME immediately. A Rubik is picked up by EHOME. The Chinese still valuing Rubik quite a lot. In fact, many of the teams here at TI, we've got some big signature Rubik players. In fact, I was just watching earlier Kuro playing a Rubik game where he just dominated with it. Obviously, in this game, he's got an Earthshaker on the other team. Always going to be a really valuable skill to steal.
You know, it's weird. I think it was actually you that pointed it out. Something around 2 years or 4 or 5 months ago. I can't remember if it was you, but you said that Rubik just doesn't deal damage. Was that it? And I was thinking about that as well, that there's some sort of weird meta because Rubik hasn't changed at all. And we saw him fall out of the meta for supports that would deal damage. Like you saw Skywrath Mage a lot. Disruptor. Those are damage-dealing supports. But now it's the era of passive supports that can just back you up and counter-initiate. I think I brought up that principle to you a few months ago in anticipation for this TI. I said the types of heroes that you want to pick are the ones that may not initiate very well, but the ones that can continue to fight nonstop. And that's why I was able to predict that Viper and Razor would be such a prevalent meta pickup. And Dazzle and Rubik, they almost fall under the same category, where Dazzle really doesn't give you any offensive firepower, but it gives you the turnaround potential. It allows you to continue fighting. Rubik is something similar, I feel, where you have the lift ability, but it's more about sitting back, being patient, and neutralizing another hero by stealing the Fissure, by stealing the Echo Slam. I feel like that's the way that the meta has evolved in terms of supports.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. I'd forgotten. It was me, I think, that you talked to about, and it was just like Rubik has sort of like completely fallen out of favor. Even though he hasn't changed in any way, there's still some good abilities to steal and everything. It was just the laning phase. It was all about damage, and Rubik didn't provide that at all. So if you ever saw Rubik, it was very rare, but it was only time you ever saw it was when it was paired with a support that was able to deal a lot of damage, and you needed to be able to have just a disable to set that up. We'll get to the hero picks real quickly. I just want to get to a point here. Why do you think that because we're seeing these really passive supports, why do you think Shadow Demon isn't being favored as much? We see a lot of Dazzle, a lot of Rubik. Shadow Demon is one of those heroes that is all about passivity and saving mechanisms.
I think it's just a hero that is okay at everything, and it doesn't specialize enough, and the teamfight potential of the hero is incredibly low, I feel.
Yeah.
Like, you can disrupt and purge somebody is kind of annoying, but it doesn't really change things too much. Like, if you get disrupted, you're still in that area.
Yeah.
Whereas Dazzle graves you, you can continue to fight. You're not afraid. You're looking to re-engage. Same with something like Winter Wyvern. You have so much comeback potential, but that's why heroes like, on a side note, that's why heroes like Razor, why Gyrocopter, why Viper are so important. Because when you have these passive supports, think about it like that. You need your core then to be the lane dominator. Before you could pick heroes like Anti-Mage a lot more because your supports would deal the damage for you in fights early game. But now that that's no longer the case, you need carries that are pretty much self-sufficient. That's why Gyrocopter, everyone's like, Gyrocopter wasn't really changed. He kind of fell out. But now he's so popular because him plus any hero can make a kill happen. Razor can pretty much just zone an offlaner by himself. You don't need help to do that. And so that's why you see these heroes all come back into the meta together, because there's a very progressive reason for that.
Bounty Hunter and Winter Wyvern going to be grabbed here for Team Newbee. So we're looking at an offlaner, Shaker, and a 4-position Bounty Hunter much more likely. Tusk being grabbed by EHOME means that's going to be their offlaner here. We may even see dual lanes out from EHOME with, like, say, a Dazzle-Tusk combination, and Rubik just babysitting that safe laner, which is going to be the Ember Spirit that we talked about before. So I'm glad we actually had an opportunity to bring it up, as we are going to see it in this Game 1.
Yeah, I actually really like that you brought it up, because now it's incredibly prevalent. And I'm trying to think about why EHOME decided to take it, because I actually think the hero is kind of bad against Gyrocopter, because the Rocket Barrage just...
Yeah, once you lose your Flame Guard, right, that's a primary source of your damage, especially in the first, like, 10 to 15 minutes.
Yeah, so from Newbee, I would actually have liked to see... I think you should pick a lane dominator mid at this point, because you have such greedy... You have a really greedy support in the Bounty Hunter, and Earthshaker, I think, is inherently a greedy hero to pick, because you do need a build-up timer. Like, you only need the Blink Dagger, but getting to that point is a little bit hard.
But what heroes do well versus Razor? Like, I'm going to presume the Ember Spirit is safe lane here simply because Razor is probably much stronger in a 1 versus 1 position.
I actually think it's the other way. I think they're going to put the Ember mid, because I think Razor is... I guess it depends on what EHOME favor. If you favor the Razor's farm, like, you want to absolutely guarantee the Razor's farm, you put him in the safe lane.
Yeah.
But it's going to be... If you put the Ember in the safe lane, it's going to be harder to zone out the Earthshaker.
Yeah.
But if you put the Razor in the safe lane, he can pretty much do it, and your supports can go and stack and stuff.
So, yeah, and at the same time, maybe, like, here's another way to view it, right? Like, okay, which hero on your own team do you value more? It's also maybe which team on the enemy team. Do you value more shutting down? We still don't know what Newbee's going to pick up, but Razor will do better in either lane, essentially shutting down the enemy hero, whether it's the offlaner, Shaker, or whatever mid Newbee choose to pick up.
You have to be really dynamic about that. When it comes to drafting, like, I gave a very small summary of how everything's going to work.
Okay.
And there's... It sounded relatively... It might have sounded relatively obvious, but there's so much more that goes into it. Not just, like, picking passive supports with lane-dominating carries. Like, there's just so much of it that... it blows my mind how much has to go into a drafter's mind while they're doing stuff and creating these types of strategies. And it goes beyond just this hero works well with this hero, which is how people view it at face value.
Newbee finished things off with an Invoker. I am a little bit of a loss here as to what we're going for with this Invoker pickup. We haven't seen very much Invoker in the current meta. We haven't seen it very much in TI so far. What's the value out of this Invoker? Is it the Quaswex Invoker, I'm presuming? I don't really see a whole lot of value in the Exort Invoker just yet.
I think it's pretty good against Razor and both Ember because none of Invoker spells are really single target abilities. They're more just AoE, so you can clear out without having to take any damage from any of EHOME's rosters. And there's some cool synergy with Winter Wyvern plus Invoker, where you can, the Winter Wyvern will cast the Winter's Curse. You can just throw EMP plus Tornado in that general direction. I guess in some ways, if he decides to go for the Quaswex Invoker, it would kind of make less sense, actually, because you don't want him to Tornado somebody up in the air while they're cursed, right?
While they're cursed. At the same time, if the curse is down, you could just lay out an EMP without the Tornado being
so
needed.
They can't help him whatsoever. I think, actually, EHOME have some of the better counters to the Winter Wyvern, and I think that's partially the reason why Newbee decided to pick non-damage, or why EHOME decided to pick non-physical damage-dealing cores. Because if you look at it, both the Razor and the Ember Spirit, you're not really afraid if those heroes are hitting you, because they don't actually deal that much physical damage.
Yeah, very rare circumstances, like the Razor has already sapped a bunch of damage or something.
Yeah, exactly.
But most of the time, it's like Ember Spirit is more reliant on Sleight of Fist. The Razor is more reliant on his Eye of the Storm and Static Link. The regular right clicks are not that devastating.
Yeah, I'm actually so excited to see this Invoker. In my opinion, if you're a real mechanical god, Invoker's the hero. Because I just can't. I think I'm a really solid mechanical player, and I can't even touch this hero. I can cast the spells, obviously, but to do it in the correct order with the correct presence of mind, it's beyond belief. It goes beyond just Tornado, EMP.
It's not just playing the Invoker game and like, oh, look, I can spam out all of the spells
Anybody
right now.
Can do that.
It's all about, okay, what spells are you using at the right times, not necessarily spamming them all out at the same time. So. All right, so the dual lane is going to be happening here in middle. Sansheng and Mu are going to be facing up against CTY and Lana. Now, this is, I say, a dual lane, but it's kind of a tri-lane with Banana trying to sneak in an early pickoff on the Courier. He actually gave himself a ward in between that Tier 1 and Tier 2 tower, putting a lot of priority in making sure that CTY doesn't get too far ahead. That being said, Ember Spirit did go for the Poor Man's Shield build, which I like a lot against the Invoker, primarily because Invoker's damage is very weak. His right-click damage is like hardly anything when he doesn't go for Exords. So if the Poor Man's Shield is going to be soaking up a majority of his damage. But this also means he's not going to be getting an early bottle or anything with the Bounty Hunter to pick off.
Mu's actually kind of messing up a little in regards to CS. Like, he's missing some that I wouldn't anticipate him to miss, just because I think that Mu is probably one of the top 5 mids, especially at TI4, right? Where he just...
Oh, yeah.
He was amazing, and so I think there's a little bit of a misplay here, but maybe he's just not super used to playing the hero. And with this ward down in this middle, they really need to be able to pick off the Courier. You don't do that, and that ward doesn't provide you with anything unless you're picking off the Courier.
Yeah. Top lane, we've got RTK playing the Tusk. Now, he's going to be going against Rabbit's Gyrocopter, who will obviously be babysit a little bit by Sansheng. He's not going to be spending all of his time middle. Now, Tusk should be able to get a decent amount of experience here, but it is one of those lanes he can't be overly aggressive. So, if anything, he may see an early rotation into the middle lane to help out our Ember Spirit. That duo is actually quite powerful, snowballing in someone. DDC is running in for June here, trying to get that kill. Lanham actually drops a little bit low. Banana almost dies, but a Fisher comes out at the last second. A right click brings him down to 4 HP. DDC, though, unable to finish off that enemy Bounty Hunter thanks to the Fisher. And that also means their counter ward is down. So Bounty Hunter and the Earthshaker run themselves back to base. At the same time, though, this is still really good for EHOME because look where that creep wave is. This is a lot of missed experience for the offlaner. Yeah,
this is just good decisions overall by EHOME. I know we were debating whether or not the Ember Spirit would go mid, but I think they actually correctly ascertained that it would be a Quaswex Invoker, because if it was an Exord Invoker, this CTY would be struggling.
Yeah.
But because it's a Quaswex Invoker, he goes for the Poor Man's Shield, and he's actually heavily out-CSing the mid-Invoker. So the range advantage that you once had is completely neutralized here.
Yeah, and that's the big advantage, right, of having a draft like EHOME's. If, say, Newbee last picked up, oh, Banana, taking away that, oh, they actually both got the counter wards. So counter for a counter. Anyway, going back to it, like, say Newbee picked up a last pick at Viper, right? At that point in time, you're not going to run your Ember Spirit minion.
Yes,
You
exactly.
put the Razor against it. So it's always nice to have that versatility in lanes when you draft. C2I takes a bit more damage as Banana's hovering around here, but without a successful gank, Banana is kind of falling behind in experience. And that's always the biggest danger of a bounty hunter is if you roam around and you're unsuccessful in getting any kills, you're not going to get that level 6 very quickly, and you'll have to spend a lot more time solo XPing out of lane while another hero tries to rotate around and get kills. And just means really loosens your effectiveness as a bounty hunter because it's all about the track starting about 15 minutes.
Yeah, see, if you're an EHOME fan right now, you're incredibly satisfied with how everything's gone so far. CTY, he's playing a hero that almost always gets punished, which I think I even called it right. I was like, they're going to pick something that will punish him mid, but this Quasvex Invoker simply can't. So he is doing a good job of free farming. The Bounty Hunter hasn't had any impact in this game so far. The offlane Earthshaker, because it's a Razor, he just can't go down there anymore. Like, it's just not possible. Without
level 2, Bounty Hunter is unable to pick off the Courier as it heads back to base, so that empty bottle. So the Bounty Hunter's just, Banana's not been getting any of his objectives in. If you talk about early game and what the Bounty Hunter needs to accomplish, so far he's failed every single objective. And it's just because EHOME are playing really well defensively around this hero. And this is always my biggest concern. Like Bounty Hunter, I was talking to, actually I don't remember who I was talking to about it. I think it was one of the Russian players, maybe FNG. I was talking about, like, why do you go Bounty Hunter? Like, why is Bounty Hunter that valuable if there are some very obvious weaknesses? Whereas you look at other heroes that are first pick, second pick in the draft right now. Oh, Moo, going to be caught out here. He actually gets brought back into the Tier 1 tower. A quick tornado, but still gets caught out by the chain. CTY, they're both dropping low, but it is going to be Moo. No, he stays alive there. Both CTY and Moo will walk away quite healthy. Still, no first blood on the board.
Yeah, but the Courier was sniped. Radiant's Courier was sniped. It is a Bounty Hunter that has enough levels now, and that's fairly significant, getting that Courier snipe, because he was pretty much... the Bounty Hunter pick was just not paying off, but now it kind of is okay, but onto your point about Bounty Hunter.
Oh, yeah. So the Bounty Hunter essentially was, he said that, Bounty Hunter does have some very clear weaknesses, but the thing is that Bounty Hunter is such a special hero because it forces the enemy team to both draft and play differently in the early game than they normally would, and that's why it's more valuable. Yes, you can have certain situations where, like, you don't get anything done in the early game, and then once you get your level 6, the enemy team is 5-manning, and Bounty Hunter doesn't bring as much as a 4 position than many other supports would, and yeah, there's some very obvious weaknesses to that hero, but it's just because it provides so much pressure early on in just the draft. It's like, hey, you have to deal with a Bounty Hunter now. You have to pick, these kind of heroes. You have to play this kind of way. You're putting pressure on the supports to buy a lot of counter wards. It's just too valuable in what the enemy is forced to do, and it kind of makes up essentially for some obvious weaknesses there.
Oh, yeah. You have to place a sentry mid. You have to make sure your Courier doesn't get sniped. You have to have dust and wards on you when you're a poor support. You have to make sure you don't take bad fight. Like, you can't chance fights against a Bounty Hunter that's level 6.
Yeah. And the reason I'm really pointing that out is because, like, you look at drafting right now, it's all about heroes that are strong in many different occasions, right? Like Gyrocopter, always strong. Some of these supports kind of always strong. Earthshaker, like, valuable as a support or an offlaner. Like, these heroes are always good, essentially. Now, we are going to have a fight here in the bottom lane. Looks like Newbee want to go for the Razor here. Already slowing down. The Fisher gets laid out. Immediate TP away, but Shuriken stops him. And YJ is going to be going down as well as Lana. It's not only first blood, but a double kill that goes to Rabbit. He's going to be a happy camper. Not always does a core like this want to rotate over to the off lane, but this one was certainly worth it.
That was actually so well set up by Newbee. They created this perfect pincer where nobody could get out. You saw the Winter Wyvern on the side coming in over the secret shop using his Arctic Burn. You saw the Invoker TP from the front. The Fissure was just perfectly well set up. Everything about that was just really well played by Newbee overall. And I thought that EHOME was doing fine in the laning phase, and they are, because their Tusk is doing so much better than the Earthshaker. But that turns everything around. Like, they got levels on their Bounty Hunter as a result of that. Like, he went from 3 to 4 off of that. They got kills on their carry. everything turns around because of that.
Now DDC's dead as well. Newbee find that one. And I think they're well set up to continue to put pressure on these towers. They get pick-off after pick-up. Lanham gets a really good telekinesis toss back in. The Razor actually does a lot of damage with the plasmid field, but again, it's just still not enough. Nobody's rotating over. The Ember Spirit is still not ready to go. Now the Snowball comes in. They're going to be able to stall up more of these heroes as the TPs start coming in. Looks like the Bounty Hunter's the first to fall farther up. They do have a call down. DDC immediately getting blow up. Now ROTK's in some trouble. June lays out the Fisher to finish him off, but Ember Spirit is finally here to clean up this aisle. Newbee
Here we go.
will lose the gyrocopter. Moo trying to get away, but to jump in with that remnant. CTY runs out of mana now, but Moo, I don't think he's making it out of this one. There's going to be right click that comes eventually. Razor, yeah, he moves around. Will be able to get the kill finally. So 3-6 now. EHOME essentially recover. I think the important thing there is that they didn't lose. Like, yeah, they lost a couple of kills there that maybe they shouldn't have, but they were support kills. In the end, the only core that has died has been that Razor, right? Like, he died early on in that team fight. The other fights that happened, you know, Razor was still, both Razor and Ember Spirit were able to be a part of the kills and not die.
You would prefer CTY to come in like that at the end,
yeah,
at the same time, because he gets more XP because they're just overall more leveled. He's only splitting that experience with the Razor, so I think he's going to be really satisfied. Banana's going to just be, oh, that's going to hurt.
What a dick. What a dick.
He's going to be so angry about that.
Yeah. So, just lost time, essentially.
Oh, and mid, though.
RTK, he may have to snowball. Oh, he turns around and tries snowball, but he's stunned up before he can get it off. And RTK, he may actually almost die here. He's got a bottle up now to make sure the urn doesn't kill him. But RTK just a little bit slow on the mark there. If he'd been able to snowball just a bit sooner, he could have dodged the EMP. But as it was, it burns out his mana, and him turning around like that almost killed him.
That's actually a really neat build by Moo that I want to highlight. He decides to go for the urn, which is not something that you'll typically see on an Invoker, but something that Quaswex Invoker really lacks is damage.
Yep.
And Urn of Shadows, it's a pretty good finishing move. If the Tusk didn't have bottle charges there, he would almost certainly be dead.
Particularly because the change-up of Urn of Shadows also means that it does proc Cold Snap now, right? Which Cold Snap was also changed where the initial damage is less, but every time it actually procs after the initial hit is more powerful.
I think you go from behind here and then push the top tier 1 tower, and that's what Newbee's doing. They might even get the courier if they're lucky, but the target right now, it's not even that you want to kill DDC, it's that you want to kill him and then give EHOME no chance to set up. They actually even get the courier snipe here as he knows he's dead. He's in the corner right there.
He can't even TP away because Earthshaker still has that enchant totem ready to go. So Newbee, I mean, the playstyle that they brought to TI4, right? They brought the infamous death ball, and they knew how to play against it as well. Newbee are showing very early 5-man movement that is finding so much. Like for the first team fight that they had at the bottom lane, clearly caught out 2 people and was able to allow them to almost take that tier 1 tower bottom. And now this one will find a courier, a pick-off, and a support, as well as almost taking this tower as well. And the thing is, they're not being punished for 5-manning, really. I mean, CTY is the one hero who is kind of free-farming, while Newbee are grouped up. But the rest of EHOME do have to 4-man just to be able to keep their towers alive, because otherwise they just fall into too much of a net worth deficit.
Yeah, and EHOME want to try to take fights early because they have the type of lineup that is want to do so. They've got a mech coming on their Razor at any moment. And now that's twice they've lost that courier. I think that's pretty much giving away a tower and a half in gold to Newbee for free. And that's the best thing about a courier kill. It's because it's, I don't know how to put it, but once you take a tower once, you're never going to get it again, right?
Yeah, it's gold that you usually don't expect.
Exactly.
Razor is going to be potentially caught out here. Looks like the Ice Shard's going to come in, and RTK might be able to save him. There goes the Winter's Curse, but Razor is still very healthy, and it's Moo who's going to go down instead. Ember Spirit is going to look for more here. Both June and Sansheng on their way out, but a beautiful Ice Shards locks in June, and he will be going down. It seems like a 2-man Fisher will not stop his death, only delay it, and Sansheng looks like he will get away. Tusk, yeah, he's looking for extra kills, but there's no one above that tower. So 2 pickoffs like that, and it's now EHOME's turn to 5-man and take an objective.
I like how EHOME are playing this. They're not being a little bit too objective heavy. They're just saying, oh, we're going to let you set the pace, and then we're just going to counter and reapply pressure. I think that's the type of player that CTY is. We saw it yesterday, right, where when he was playing Bloodseeker against Empire, he was never the first one in the fight. I think I even pointed this out. I said he's got the Midas. He's just farming. He's perfectly okay with the pace of this game. And then he comes in when it matters.
Right.
And he's the game changer every single time. Every single time you've seen the Ember, he's the person that kind of leads the charge and says, I'm the cavalry. I'm going to make the difference in this fight. And it really is, because now he's just got more farm than the Invoker can keep up with. Like, if you take a look at the net worths, he actually has more than 1,000 over the Invoker. And he's actually really close to the Gyrocopter, who's been more or less free farming this entire game. And that's really surprising as an Ember.
Yeah.
He's built up 2,200 gold. His hero is kind of made a little bit... It's a little difficult for CTY because the Flame Guard gets burned off immediately by the Invoker Tornado. And the area of it is so big that there's almost no way you can defend against it. But still, I mean, the hero pick itself is paying off.
Yeah, it really seems like the Ember Spirit and the Bloodseeker, these are the type of heroes that fit CTY's playstyle quite well. So, Newbee have moved into the EHOME jungle now. Rabbit is farming those one up. It looks like he's going to be going for the early S&Y build on Gyrocopter because they are fighting so much. I like this build. This also gives Gyrocopter very early physical damage, which I think is rather important versus some of these heroes like the Razor and Ember Spirit, who can shrug off some of the magic damage. We talked about, obviously, it kind of goes, a little bit both ways, right? The fact that Ember Spirit is sometimes good versus magic damage because he's got an extra 500 HP in a way, but he's also so dependent on that Flame Guard for damage that magic can be a little bit of his bane. Newbee are going to be running into Banana here. The dust already catches out Banana. He's not going anywhere. Now, Newbee do come in. They have a Fissure, but with the Ice Shards blocking him out, they're not able to get uphill. Moo, in the meanwhile, does manage to take that Tier 1 tower in the top lane, and this is pretty key because he wants to get that early Orchid so he can start ghost walking around and finding pickoffs on EHOME.
I like that CTY saving his money here. I know that this is the what do they call it? I can't remember what his player's name is called. The Mushi style, where you save up 10k gold even when you have buyback in every single item in the game. But I like that he saved it up. He just wanted to see, and I actually thought he wouldn't complete the drums, just because if he sees the Invoker going for the Orchid, then I feel the more natural strategy is just to keep the Bracer and then go for the Manta style.
Yeah, you want to pick up that Manta as soon as possible so the Invoker doesn't have as much time to counter you, right? Because when the Orchid is up and you don't have Manta, you're very susceptible to that gank.
Yeah. In fact, I think it's just such a hard counter for it. And if you notice, he actually decides to go for the Yasha instead of going for the Battle Fury. Like, this is a very natural progression. And it makes it's easier for him when he saves up the money because he can just simply see what the Invoker's going for and make that decision after the Invoker. Because now the Invoker can't really do anything with this Oblivion Staff but go for the Orchid.
Third courier down. Banana finds it.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. Again, he's just pairing his ward setup. Really offensive wards that seemingly is always catching out the couriers. Now, CTY knows the Bounty Hunter's up here, but he's going to continue to push forward. What do you think about this ward? This was probably placed when they were going for that Tier 1 tower.
Yeah, it was.
Early on. It's very offensive, though. Even if it was based around that tower, it's still a significant amount of ward vision that they're placing in the enemy jungle. Why do you think they're focused so much on that, despite the fact that it seems like Newbee have actually spent a lot of time in EHOME's jungle?
I think they wanted CTY to be able to do this, but they're actually going to catch him out here, and there should be enough damage for this. The CTY is going to go down, but I think it was so they could take control of the jungle, but at least pressure this Tier 2 tower top, so Newbee can't go for the obvious play, which is to go for the Roshan in the mid tower. You can play responsive Dota, but because smokes exist in the game, so making that play that CTY did is fine. Like, he pushed out, he didn't see anybody on the map. That was fine, but...
Yeah, he was creating a certain amount of space for certain heroes like the Razor, who were also like pushing in that middle lane. And the middle tower is pretty important, again, going back to controlling Roshan, right?
Yeah, and now with that top ward, they just saw Rabbit back off, and so they know where heroes are approximately, because this ward didn't spot anyone going through. He saw the fissure, so they know they're lined up for this mid tower. And look at how EHOME is positioned as a result of the ward vision.
Yeah.
They're almost all already here, because they realize if they didn't go through this area, this ward over here, and they didn't see Rabbit continue pushing at that top area, then it's very clear that how they're playing and where they're eventually going to go to.
Yeah, there's the potential gank on middle lane, and this also means CTY is very free to, once again, very aggressively push forward top and probably will not be ganked, at least not yet anyway. RTK jumping in on Moo here. Is no more mana. They're still going to be able to catch Moo, though, with thanks to CTY coming back in. Jumps over to the Remnant. They try and catch more. Gyrocopter's actually maybe going to go for the Razor. No. It's just too many heroes of EHOME set up, and with the Invoker already down, Newbee are not prepared to fight.
Yeah, Newbee can't lose Moo in that early engagement if they want to be able to save this mid tower, and this is going to be fairly significant for EHOME to take because it opens up the jungle completely for EHOME to invade without any sort of response, because Newbee then would have to play preemptively. And so by EHOME taking down this mid tower, if you notice, teams just prioritize saving the mid tower above anything else because it's the entrance to the jungle that matters the most. And so for Newbee to lose it this early, even though it's 18 minutes in the game, you don't think it's that early. In a game that's as closely contested as this, it is.
Oh, RTK, he's going to find the Blink Dagger of June, but man, Tusk is still such a tanky hero, and he's actually going to ball up. He knows even if he does die here, it's fine. His allies are going to be set up for a great fight. The Echo Slam gets laid out, but it's still not enough damage to finish off ROTK, and you get a kill on both the Ember Spirit and the Razor.
Yeah, now Newbee, I mean, they're just losing a little bit too much map control. Like, EHOME is only up by 1 kill, but they're gaining confidence. They're pretty happy with the pace of this game, and in experience earned, EHOME is leading. Net worth, there was a slight lead towards Newbee, but it's pretty marginal. And considering that Newbee's item builds are supposed to be geared towards the mid game, EHOME's going to be really happy about it because once Moo gets his Orchid, the effectiveness of the Orchid itself isn't going to be that great because you don't want to Orchid a Razor. One, it purges you. Two, the damage, you don't want to continue to put damage on that hero of all heroes.
Yeah, because you're then Orchiding him and then cold snapping him. Yeah.
And a Manta within the next 900 gold. And so even then, it's not a very good item to have at that point. Yeah. And so naturally, EHOME's items are already countering you. So if you're Newbee, you want to be further ahead when it comes to net worth. Especially since the Gyro should be so much more ahead than everybody. Because he had ancient stacks.
I've got a little bit of a stupid question here, Blitz. I seem to be having a brain fart. When you put single target items, when you activatables on a Razor, does his passive work there?
Oh, when you Orchid or Hex him?
Yeah.
Yeah,
it does, right?
Yeah.
So you go in, you Orchid him, you cold snap him, and you earn him. 3 different unstable currents that are going to be bouncing back to you.
Yeah, that's actually my biggest fear as a Storm Spirit. When I zip in and I Orchid on top of a Razor, and then I instantly get slowed, and then I pull him, and then I get slowed again. Like, the Purge is actually just annoying. It's 100 damage to yourself every single time.
Yeah.
So it's not very efficient, and you're starting to see the Razor. He's level 13, so he's got a good amount of levels of it.
Yeah, and an SNY build for our Razor as well. After the mech, I like this build solely because the Gyrocopter's already invested into the SNY, so you can afford to, like, okay, you're going for a mid-game build, let me follow that.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I don't need to go and try and focus on getting my late-game items, AGS, AC, or something like that, because you've already delayed your late-game item progress as well.
No, I completely agree with it. I think going for the BKB here actually is the wrong decision. Just going for more tanky items that allow you to deal damage, which is SNY. It's a mid-tier item.
So what do you think he goes? He's got the poor man Scotty and the SNY, and you want him to go like the Scotty next or something?
I think after that point you do get a BKB. At some point getting a Razor a BKB is just so effective.
Yeah.
And then I saw a build he did yesterday where he went to Shivas.
Oh, Echo Slam TDC. Yeah, that's double ultimates for our poor little support. I'm sure EHOME are not going to be too worried about that, especially since Newbee aren't going to pressure that tower afterwards.
Yeah, but they're happy. The thing is in a regular game, yes, you wouldn't be happy with that. If you're Newbee, you're like, I blew 2 ultimates to kill a Dazzle, but it's because there's a bounty hunter in the game that the track momentum makes it okay.
That's true. Those 3 different heroes involved in that track. Now, Lana.
Oh, no.
Oh, there goes the courier 4th time, but our bounty hunter may be playing the ultimate price. In fact, June is in some trouble as well. They snowball to him and focus him down, and Chan Totem was stolen, not the ability he really wanted. Banana, fortunately, does get out, but that's the 4th courier snipe this game.
We were just talking about how Banana wasn't doing anything in the early game, and now he's given them like 3 towers worth of
Yeah, and now they know, right? Now they know. It's like, oh, this is definitely warded. Problem is, this was warded a long time ago when he sniped the first courier up there, and now he's actually replaced that ward preemptively with another laning ward at the top lane.
You know what the worst part about that too is that was CTY's Manta that was on the courier.
Oh yeah.
So now there's going to be a 2-minute window if Newbee wants to. I doubt it matters in the grand scheme of things, but if the Invoker had found the Ember Spirit there and killed him, then CTY would have been like, oh my god, can't actually believe that happened.
And that can still happen in the next 2 minutes, right?
Yeah,
like
exactly.
if CTY ever gets caught by the Invoker while the Courier is dead, that's entirely on Banana's snipe.
I think you smoke right now if you're Newbee because you know that the Manta's down. Like they 100% know about things like that. Like, they know that the Manta's down. They know it's not going to be available. And so this Invoker is especially going to be strong right now. So you just smoke and then go for an objective here. Like going for the mid tower, wrapping into the enemy jungle is fine here. And see, this is what I mean, is that that's the bigger effect that the Courier dying there. Like everything, that's what I love about the Chinese players is because they consider all this stuff that I as a commentator have to like double check for. But I know for a fact that they know already. Like they've already thought this out. And at bottom lane, CTY, he's going to TP out. They actually oh, this is disastrous.
Yeah, unfortunately they miss out on CTY, so this smoke isn't going to work. They had found somebody like CTY. As you said, they could have taken an objective. If it was a good enough fight, maybe they even go back and take Roshan from there. But the sad thing is Newbee will not gain that. And I think that's what I really respect about EHOME right now, is that for everything that Newbee is doing right and they're playing the right kind of aggression, EHOME are always responding very well with the right kind of reactionary plays.
Yeah, they're doing a good job of just keeping off the map. CTY had good presence of mind to just say, okay, I'm probably overstaying my welcome. And in the next 30 seconds, now they'll have the Manta style on him, and so they'll feel a lot more confident. But Newbee went for the right play there. Like, it was very clear that they were going to group up as 4 once they saw that Manta dead, and they might even go for more here as they know that they're split up.
The Ice Shards doesn't catch anybody. Rabbit slowed down by the chains now. They have the opportunity to snowball or not. Fisher actually stuns up too, and Newbee will get out. CTY actually messing that one up. Looks like the Sleight of Fist wasn't quite in range, so he messed up the Fist Chains combo.
I think they shouldn't have gone for it anyways. Yeah. The potential for the gyro to turn that around is just so high.
Yeah, especially in like these sort of corridor scenarios, right? The cooldown is just too good.
Yeah, especially with the Rocket Barrage. Man, that spell's just... I can understand why people don't like to watch Gyrocopter, because at least with an anti-mage, you have to worry so much about your positioning and things like that. But with the Gyrocopter, Rocket Barrage is such a punishing ability, and it's so good. You get close to him because you think you can kill him, and then all of a sudden he just turns it around on you and lays down 1,000 damage in magic.
So SNY, BKB, Gyrocopter, 2,300 gold left. Tornado put out on CTY. He actually pops the Fist and Chains onto Moo, but a good Fisher will block out the rest of the aggression of EHOME, or maybe not. The Ice Shard's still locked Moo in with Snowball over the top. They do catch the Invoker, and now the cooldown is down as well. Perhaps EHOME can take something more out of this. With a pick-off and an ultimate down, they can maybe push down the Tier 2 tower.
That was so good by ROTK to wait with the Ice Shards. Like, he had it for a while, but then he just cut off the positioning for the Invoker. Just good subtle play in EHOME. This should mean an objective for them, and they want to take objectives. Against a Bounty Hunter, you want to be pushing S5 and doing things of this nature to just give him as little opportunities as possible to get individual pickoffs to track. And this Tornado, they're looking for it.
Yeah, Rabbit will get away to his Tier 3 tower. Banana is nowhere near the Tier 2, so it doesn't look like they're going to try and contest just yet. EHOME start backing up as the Invoker is up in 5 seconds. They don't want to take a full 5 versus 5, and I can understand that, especially when the top lane's pushing out. Good time for CTY to farm. Really, EHOME just want to draw out this game, right? I mean, they've got the Manta, Ember Spirit. It's sort of reactionary items, essentially, to deal with the Orchid, but it also means you're a little bit low on damage, so you want to wait until you've got that Battle Fury and Crystallis picked up.
I think if you're Newbee here, you want to just try and take a fight, because they do have a really good item advantage. Like the heroes that have the items that they want, they've got the Blink Dagger on the Earthshaker. There's not a whole lot that's going to make them stronger than this at this moment.
Right.
And so they're going to go for the smoke here. And they have to get something out of this, though, because I believe that's their last smoke. Yeah, it is. They're not going to have another smoke for another 6 minutes. So they're going to go for the Roshan here, because if you go just for a single kill and it doesn't work, like when they went for the bottom kill and it doesn't work like that, then you're just so screwed if you're Newbee.
Yeah, or say you even find the kill, but it's a support.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want that to happen, because if you're looking at EHOME's lineup, they've got a Rubik with the smoke, and they've got one on their own. And so all it does is make it susceptible for Newbee to lose fights and objectives. And so they're going for this this play, and they actually know that they're doing it, but they might just be way too late.
Too late. June is in a really great position. Even if EHOME were there, say 5 seconds earlier, he was still ready to go with the Fisher block. So, in the end, EHOME actually give up a Roshan. Don't really get anything for it. Most of the time, teams will have an idea about when an enemy is taking Roshan like that, and will either be able to get a contest fight or sometimes go for the split push. It's a very classic trade. Dire side take Roshan, Radiant side take tier 2 top, but this time, EHOME don't get anything but farming time.
That was the Bulldog precedent. That's what EGM said, that when Alliance used to play that, Bulldog had discovered, like, if you're Radiant, yes, you have to give up Roshan, but Bulldog had just discovered that you could take so much more as a result of that. And now that's the standard play, and that's kind of the impact that Bulldog has had on Dota 2, I guess, is that he's the one that set up that trade, I feel. Or made it at least really popular. It's like, if you know they're Roshing for sure, just go to the opposite side tower and take it.
Yeah. BKB is the next item up for the Razor, which means he should be able to get in close quarters with the gyrocopter, static linking him, and won't feel the recourse of damage when you get a little too close to a gyrocopter, which is that rocket barrage. So this item, I think, is going to be incredibly important. There's still going to be a big upgrade in physical damage, though, for the gyrocopter, as he's about to complete his MKB. In fact, they'll almost straight up have it if they can actually take this tier 1 tower. Now, Lonum's going to be caught, and with the rocket barrage over the cliff, plus a call down, Lonum, he almost gets brought down. He managed to get a shallow grave to save him for a little bit longer. They actually pop the Winter's Curse just to make sure that Lonum doesn't escape. And EHOME do finally lose their hero, but with Winter's Curse down, I think that Newbee are going to have to back up, especially with that top tier 2 tower taking some damage.
You know, it's weird because I think Newbee, in a lot of ways, have the better late game lineup. But I think that Newbee would prefer to push at this point and juncture, because if you take a look at EHOME's lineup, they don't actually breach high ground very well, and they can't clear creep waves. Like, to clear creep waves, you'd have to get in vision within distance of the tornado. Like, ROTK does have, I guess he has the blink ice shards, but it's not efficient at clearing creep waves. But if you look at Newbee's lineup, they can clear creep waves forever.
Oh, the drums, they went the wrong direction. They didn't expect Rabbit to be so fast. And managed to get away from them there. Looks like a missed Observer Ward here from the Dire side. Didn't actually see this one placed till now. I'm presuming that there's a cliff area here that allows you to see behind the tier 1 tower jungle area.
What's the button again? To
F2 and F3.
Oh, okay.
To be able to see vision.
It allows you to see a little bit.
I'm presuming there's a better spot than what it sees here, right?
Yeah, okay, we won't focus on that.
Yeah.
These guys are 10 times better than I'll ever be, so I'm not going to put too much stock in my own judgment, even though I'm supposed to be the analyst. But the Invoker picks up a BKB, and this is what I'm talking about, though. If you look at EHOME's lineup, they're not actually that good at repelling Newbee's 5-man push. And what EHOME actually want to do is keep the game going for as long as possible, because they don't have the best high ground ability at the same time. Like, if you look at their team, you don't want the Ember to be up front. None of your supports can really help you with taking down towers. It's not like either of them are a Jakiro or a Leshrac. So you're just going to wait for opportunities to come to you, whereas I feel like Newbee should be establishing map control as much as they possibly can at this moment, because their high ground potential is just so much better. You can send the gyrocopter up first if you want, because there's not too much that'll punish him. There's like no immediate burst damage on the side of EHOME, and you're seeing that right now is they're all headed to this bottom tower and they're being a lot more aggressive. Like, even after EHOME got a mech on their Razor and an SNY, they still weren't looking for fights.
They still say a lot about where EHOME feel, like, power level wise, where they are in comparison to Newbee, because this is a tough tower to defend. Like, you're stuck in this very clutch area when the enemy team's being aggressive against you, and they've got so much good AoE, but EHOME are still going to try and force it here. They actually popped a Walrus Punch on Hassan Shank, going to try and kill him first to make sure there's no Winter's Curse, and they do get him. Rabbit has already dropped low. In fact, the Razor, he's able to take away that Aegis. Now Moo loses some of his damage, but there is a lot of missing mana on the side of EHOME. Perhaps some of their offensive capabilities are going to be stunted June is waiting out his opportunity to hit an Echo Slam. They have the vision of the Razor, but they're still not actually going for it. Deafening Blast will give June a little bit of room, but a Sleight of Fist and Chains locks down both. Rabbit's going to go down as well, and now Moo is caught on top of all of that. Finally, they do get a good ultimate out from the Winter Wyvern, but it's just a bit too late. Sansheng came back to the fight, threw that one out, and may have saved Moo, or maybe not. CTY is orchid it up, but eventually that will run out, and he will be able to get another Chains on a Moo. Snowball's coming in as well. Moo, no escape whatsoever. The Winter Wyvern did manage to escape, though. Pop that Arctic Burn. Good read, though, from EHOME, focusing on the much more important core.
Yeah, once YJ went in there as the Razor, and he just popped his BKB, there was actually nothing Newbee could do to deter him. And from the get-go, it just felt like nobody from Newbee was casting anything, because they didn't get... June, I think, had a few opportunities to go for the Echo Slam or the Fissure, but it seemed like he was hesitant, and he wanted a more ideal situation to present itself. But as soon as your Gyrocopter loses his BKB and his Aegis, you, at that point, have to all-in commit. Like, there's no going back at that point. You just have to, whatever fight you can take, you take. Because otherwise, you're going to lose your Gyrocopter there, and that's probably more important than your life.
Yeah, I mean, they had two of their biggest team fight abilities were completely wasted.
Yeah, exactly. You didn't see... Sansheng had an opportunity to turn around and just go for any Winter's Curse that he could. And I feel like at that point, you just go for it, because the cooldown on the ability isn't so long that it breaks anything.
Right.
You just throw it out there. You know you're not going to get into a fight, so why not? And you didn't see the Echo Slam until it was pretty much the fight was over. Like, there were a few 2- or 3-man Echo opportunities that had happened, but I almost felt like Newbee was a little bit too content with waiting things out, and I don't think that was the play there. Like, I feel at that moment, once the BKB is over of the Razor, you just all in on him.
I think also the movement speed of the Ember Spirit really caught them unawares, because when Ember Spirit pops, like, he goes for a Manta build like this, and then he has his drums active plus the Phase Boots build, he actually gets to, like, max movement speed. So I think EHOME, or rather Newbee, were probably approaching that the latter half of that fight going, okay, we had a buyback on our Winter Wyvern, let's back up and wait until he gets here, and then he'll throw down the Winter's Curse. We'll get this surprise turnaround where Winter's Curse and Echo Slam are both laid out, and we can actually win the fight. But they just couldn't get back fast enough. He just got run over by this Ember Spirit, who was able to chase everybody down.
Oh, I mean... Newbee, this is like, they went for a desperation smoke to try to catch somebody in case, but EHOME have a real smoke ready for them.
Oh, yes, they do. A two-man chain's already setting things up. Now EHOME quick on the retreat in order to get away from that EMP. ROTK with his haste rune is trying to keep everyone in range. And YJ's right up in the front lines. Moo already losing so much armor. He's down and out first. Newbee now trying to turn things around with the Winter's Curse, but it's not even going to be close. RTK comes in. There goes Sansheng. Finally, Drew hits the Echo Slam, but Rabbit, he's not in place to be able to get any damage out. In fact, he's so low that he's going to die to ROTK, and it's a total wipe without EHOME losing a single hero. Good covery there from DDC, but even then, if they had lost one or two of their heroes, it wouldn't have mattered. Newbee were just so down and out in that team fight based on the initiation.
The thing is, the entire time, Newbee hadn't smoked once. Like, they had used one really early, but they had saved them for the most part, and then Lon M was just completely prepared for that. They were like, we can get aggressive now. We just destroyed them in the previous fight. Look what happened. We should take this fight. Even if we lose the Tier 2 tower, we should just take everything. And that's what I was talking about. EHOME's lineup is built for Newbee to run at them, run out of power, and then eventually you can take down these towers, because EHOME's lineup is terrible at taking towers. Like, you've got a Razor and an Ember Spirit as your two cores. You need to just wait for opportunities where you pretty much team wipe them or close to it to be able to take objectives. And all of a sudden, Newbee's been the one that have been the aggressors the entire time, and there's still 2 Tier 2 towers up for EHOME, whereas they just took 2 instantly. Like, they didn't have to wait for any sort of sign. They're just like, we wiped them twice. Here we go. We should take some objectives. And, I mean, now things look so brutal for Newbee. They're not going to have a smoke for, if you take a look at it, I'm pretty sure for another 10 minutes when I last saw. Yeah, it's all the way down to 8. They won't be able to use it till the 45-minute mark. And if you take a look at Newbee, or EHOME, they already have one prepared, and they've got another 2 in their inventory. So all map control right now has just pretty much been seceded. Like, you can't do anything now. And Rabbit even at top.
He's going to be forced into using BKB again.
Is
he down? Yeah, he's down to 7 seconds now.
This is so brutal right now for Newbee, because the comeback mechanic truly is the smokes cap. And if they don't have any right now, you're just in such a situation where you're stuck in your base. You pretty much have to all in for a gem. Like, you buy a gem and then try to deward and hope that you're not running into people. I actually think that's the play.
Shiva's now finished up, so I was actually expecting AC and Aghanims out from our Razor. That would actually allow them to have some high ground potential, just with that one hero. But instead he goes Shiva's. Why is that?
Yeah, we talked about it. I'm almost certain I talked about it before, right? Where I said he would go for the Shivas, and he just seems to prefer the natural tankiness, and June is popped immediately. He looks so weird in the air.
Yep, he Walrus Punch, frozen in the middle of the air, and he doesn't even get hit by the EMP. Snowballs through it, trying to chase down Mu on the right-hand side. Sun Sheng is going to be the one caught out here.
Oh, Mu popped his BKB.
Himself. Oh, no, they're going to throw out a call down, but it's just not going to do anything. Rabbit comes forward. He doesn't even have his BKB up yet. Oh, it was still another 2 seconds on cooldown, but I think Newbee realized that even if that was there, it wouldn't have mattered. EHOME are just too big, and we'll call it GG. 38 minutes in, EHOME will take it 24-10.
If anybody really wants to know, he gets it because then Newbee has no attack speed. Like, if you look at the way that they built as well, there's no physical damage that'll come, so when he has his BKB popped, he just takes no damage at all. Like, he did it yesterday, and I was thinking of the reason all night, and we saw it again, but man, EHOME was just so patient. They're just really smart with how they take fights. They don't waste their smokes. They're just so clean.
Yeah, very disciplined play, I would say.
Yeah, that's the perfect way to put it.
Newbee were finding good opportunities to, like you were describing it, right? As a player, it's easy as a commentator sometimes to sit back and go, okay, you know, here are the openings that I see right now. And Newbee, like, as you say it, Newbee goes for, like, that 5-man smoke that you were talking about. So they were making the right offensive plays. It was just EHOME always had the correct response. So well played by EHOME. They take game 1 quite cleanly, and we will see whether or not they can take game number 2 after a short break.
Hello, welcome back. International 2015, game number 2, EHOME versus Newbee. If you're just joining us, this is the second game. I'll try not to spoil it if you just started watching, but actually, I think it spoils in-game, right? There's the marker. Okay, so I could just say that EHOME won game 1. CTY just demolished. I was so impressed with him. I think Cap has actually gone to... Oh, here we go. All right, so draft started. Pretty standard bans and picks so far. Shadow Fiend, such a common one when you're against Radiant.
See, you started the...
Dude, this started like 5 minutes. It's so late.
Yeah, I know.
We can just be casual and informal.
The informal, informative cast.
Did you like last?
I really did. I think we dropped some serious knowledge bombs.
Yeah, I at least got people should know about drafting more.
Yeah, I think that was probably the most interesting part.
Oh, you like that part?
Yeah.
Yeah. I've got so many ideas about drafting, but because on our main thing, it's just Winter and Ben and them doing it, and I assume they already discussed it.
Yeah.
So I'm like, what's the point? But when we're on our own thing and we don't have the panel, I guess I can do stuff like that, and I can be.
Did you do the drafting for Zephyr? You did, right?
I did in the beginning, but I just... The thing about drafting is it's really stressful. Like, you can't focus so much on playing when you do it. That's why I wanted to bring up yesterday when because Resolution does the drafting, right?
Yeah.
And ROTK does the drafting for EHOME, and it's...
As for Secret.
Yeah, it's become less of a... But in the past, it was like, if you're the support, you're the drafter. But it's now just more like the reason for that, if anybody's wondering, is just like if you're the drafter, you have a very specific plan for your draft. Like you want to see that executed. Like you're the only person that fully understands what the game looks like ideally, so you have to control so much of it after the fact. But I guess Dota's come to a point where people are so good nowadays that they just know what.
And everybody's practicing so much, and everybody has these strategies, well thought out, that essentially you can have somebody like, say, S4 be the drafter for you, but you can then have, someone else be, calling the shots, such as Puppy in game.
I think it was like, I mean, you're in the army, but the real, I think somebody said like the real test of leadership isn't to rule with like fear or to rule with like an iron fist so that people just listen to you. It's that you can delegate and teach other people the way that you think so that when the time comes for it and leadership is necessary, people can make independent choices for themselves that mirror what you want them to do. And then it's even more reinforced. Like if some guy just like screams at you nonstop that you have to do this, it's never going to feel as strong or integrated. Whereas when you have your own choices and you start to learn for yourself, like that's how I look at it.
I mean, military is a lot about teaching leadership, right? Because it's so like structures of command, and that's why often that's why so much of it is very mentor based. Because essentially, that person is looking at the people he's in charge of, and he everyone has somebody that they're in charge of that they're trying to essentially pass down. Like, hey, this is why I'm doing these things, and this is what you need to do if you want to take my position, essentially. So it feels like Dota 2, the teams in general are just a lot more integrated and on the same page. Whereas maybe previous years, people were essentially like, supports at the 5 position, like buying wards and essentially directing everybody, Yeah.
I talked to Fluff about that. We were in a game once where we played against Tron or something like that. I can't remember what this was for, but usually I'm used to Fluff just controlling like the dynamic of the game because he's the 5 position. But in this one, later on as the game went, I was actually the person making the calls from the mid position. And I was like, why did you let me do that? And he said, because in the past, the way it was and the way that it was thought of, it was never challenged. It's just if you're the support, you make all the calls. Otherwise, your position's useless. But he's like, no, the 5 position actually has so much more to think of as well. Like the warding patterns, like how they're going to interpret this, what this leads to. Like, you remember how you pointed out the 2 wards of EHOME and you wanted to know why? Like, I had to sit there and think about that for like a full minute before I was able to tell you with full accuracy why somebody did something. Whereas, like, you have to make that decision. You can't like not have wards out for a full. You had to have thought of that 3 steps ahead, and that's what true warding is. It's not just about placing river rune wards like for 35 minutes. You have to like think about.
We should always have vision of the rune, no matter what.
Yeah, but so that's what's interesting. And as a core, you can make better decisions late game because you are the one with the items that can kind of tell when you want to fight. Like you're like, I'm close to BKB. I feel like we should wait for this. Like, I feel like I can get away with split pushing like this. Like, a support isn't going to know that as well as you are as a core. And so now Dota's evolved so much from this game where there was, like, one ideology of how a support is supposed to play, how a mid's supposed to play. Like, the mid just shuts up and is mechanical god and stuff like that. But now it's become a thing where everybody has to contribute.
Right. All right, so our drafting here for game number 2 between EHOME and Newbee. We've got a Dazzle and a Bloodseeker picked up. 1-2, Newbee, Queen of Pain, and Earthshaker. Bloodseeker, let's delve into him a bit. I think he's kind of like the standout pick in these first 4 because the other 3 are solid, strong heroes kind of no matter what. Bloodseeker, I feel like, is a bit more pointed in his regard in that he can be overwhelmingly powerful, and other times he can, especially if they don't get the ball rolling, he can fall a little bit out of favor.
I think it's just a CTY hero more than anything. I think EHOME just really likes CTY to play it.
We talked about that last game with the Ember Spirit and Bloodseeker just being his, kind of signature heroes in a way.
What's weird about it is that it's almost like my playstyle, but he plays heroes that are just a little bit different. Like I like the Queen of Pains and the Storm Spirits of the world, and he likes it in a different mobility.
Yeah.
Like, because I don't play Bloodseeker or Ember, but it's interesting to see the dynamic and how he... Because the playstyle is really similar. Like, the way that CTY pressures, he goes to the enemy jungle, really likes to push out those 2 camps, play around that top lane. And I like to do the same, but it's just these subtle differences of how he approaches fights that are kind of neat, I guess. But Bloodseeker's just a good hero. Like, it's good against the Queen of Pain especially. Like, if she blinks out, she kills herself with the Rupture. Queen of Pains naturally have really little HP. Think about the common builds right now. She goes for Orchid, 872 health. She goes for Yules, even less than. Like you're not strong.
And he's very versatile when it comes to synergy within his own heroes, right? Yeah. Within his own allies. Like, for example, we saw Secret, that Bloodseeker Lina game that they had versus Animage, right? Like, that's a very clear-cut, just huge counter where you're able to Blood Rage the Lina who has Aghanim Scepter and, you know, do 1250 or 1300 pure damage.
Yeah. You know, from my perspective, I thought EG were winning that game, right? They had an
Yeah, they were actually, the way that game was progressing, they were winning early on, I think, for the first 15 to 20.
Yeah, at the after party, I was kind of buzzed, and I asked S4, I was like, were you ever worried? And he's like, no. Once we saw they had picked Anti-Mage, we knew that Lina Bloodseeker was the counter.
Yeah.
And he said there was actually no phase of the game where they were even concerned. Like, they were pretty much like, yeah, we got this game. But Newbee, I think, should draft a support like Winter Wyvern. I think it's just good against the Bloodseeker. You need something that'll slow him down. Like, as weird as that sounds, but you just need something that's gonna stop him in his tracks. And I think that Winter Wyvern is a really good hero here for Newbee in general. They have a lot of control. They've got burst damage.
Winter Wyvern also, like, not only the control offered, but also the, you know, saving mechanism.
Yeah.
Where somebody's ruptured up and Bloodseeker only brings, you know, physical damage. I mean, primarily, right? Like, you've got that blood right, but
yeah, that's not even a thing.
It's not a huge deal, right? But Cold Embrace will then allow the hero to stay still but not take that physical damage from the Bloodseeker.
Oh, this is so huge right now for Newbee. They just took a Storm Spirit against, and EHOME has already revealed both of their supports. So they know there's no Skyra. They know there's no Disruptor.
Right.
There's no Lion. Oh, this really messes with EHOME because now their last two picks, you have to center it around stopping this Storm Spirit. Because Queen of Pain, there are ways to deal with it. But Storm, if neither of your supports have disables, like hard lockdown disables, or you don't have overwhelming burst damage, you just lose the game. And
they've already got the Earthshaker, which is a huge offlane pickup that would have been probably one of the best controlling heroes versus a Storm Spirit.
Exactly. They have one soft disable in the Rubik right now. I think the Pugna is in response to just the sheer amount of spells that Newbee's lineup picks. But the thing right now is that if the Storm just decides that he wants to split push and never engage, like what can they do about that? If he just decides, I'm not going to fight, I'm just going to farm a Bloodstone and then a BKB, then an Orchid, then a Hex.
I mean, at this point in time, there are two ways to deal with the Storm Spirit pick, right? Like, you pick your last two heroes in order to directly deal with the Storm Spirit, and then you can maybe indirectly deal with the Storm Spirit by just, say, grabbing a push lineup from EHOME and just going, okay, we're just going to 5-man Death Ball you. And Storm Spirit in the first 25 to 30 minutes isn't really good versus 5-man team fights. Even if the enemy team doesn't have that many disables, right? It's still, like, just one telekinesis with 5 heroes there is still enough to kill you.
You're completely right there. That's like those are the two counters. Either you overwhelmingly shut him down, or you... And the thing is that it's not like Lesh where Storm has to go to one lane. It's either the safe lane, which is like 5% of the time, or mid. But he soaks up so much farm that it's worth picking 2 heroes to counter him.
Yeah.
Like, if you're a Leshrac, you can just be like, okay, I'll play support. Or, you know, I just won't build typical. But with Storm, like, there's a very clear-cut build and path that you take. That's like the downside of the hero. Like, it can just win games for you, but at the same time, it's worth it for the enemy team to just have 3 disables. Like, it pisses you off. And you're just like, how is this worth it? But it completely is, because the amount of space you soak up.
Yeah.
You take the jungle, you take the lane, you're the primary killer. Like, there's just so many reasons for it.
There's no draft that has ever said, okay, we just sack the Storm Spirit a little bit. You know, there's never a situation where, like, oh, they're running an aggro tri-lane against our safe lane, you know, Storm Spirit. It's fine. We'll just sack him a little bit. You know, he'll come back.
It'll be out.
Yeah.
No, there's no way.
So Newbee, I like their response here to the Pugna pickup. They ban away the Dragonites, which would have been a pretty solid mid, but it's more fits with the push lineup. Clockwork now, when they already have the Darkseer, I think this is the dual lane Darkseer Clockwork combo.
That is trippy.
It puts a lot of pressure on a safe lane Bloodseeker, is what it does, because you're then able to run this Clockwork who's already very aggressive and can trap the Bloodseeker inside of cogs, and then you've got double Ion Shell. Like, it's very powerful, I would say, against most melee heroes, and it's one of the few times, and I'm saying this very clearly because I have to deal with this in my pubs all the time, so PSA, one of the few times that Clockwork is acceptable in a dual lane situation. I can't tell you the number of times I pick up my Clockwork, and somebody's like, I'll dual lane with you. you. And I'm like, no, that's not how this works. Juggernaut, it's a pickup from EHOME. We haven't seen too much Juggernaut. It does kind of fit in the line of the 5-man push. Juggernaut doesn't bring any pushing power directly, but his healing ward is nice for 5-man situations, which are obviously kind of pushing scenarios.
Yeah, you discussed it. It had to be one or another. You actually read that better than I did, because EHOME, it was either your mid hero and your like off lane or whatever had to be, it had to counter the storm, or you just go for the all out, we're just gonna outfight you. And I think that's the direction that EHOME has decided to go, because they realize like the type of position that they're in. They're like, okay, we can't actually counter the storm with the available heroes anymore. And
yeah.
I actually like that Newbee's done that, because that means if you aggro dual lane, you can't leave your safe laner alone, and at the same time, it means that the storm is not going to be ganked. Like, it's all about giving Rabbit the best possible start. They might even short lane Rabbit with how these lanes have gone, and just put Storm Spirit plus Earthshaker in the bottom lane. That might actually be an okay idea, but I don't know if that's...
Yeah, who's the better mid laner up against...
Pugna?
Well, actually, they're putting
no,
Juggernaut
it's
in the...
CTY mid.
Yeah, so CTY mid. Is it Storm Spirit who's better there?
Easily.
Yeah, because you just deal way more damage against melee heroes, right?
Yeah, if the Queen of Pain goes for... I think it was yesterday we saw that lane matchup.
Yeah, we did, actually. It's very momentum-based.
Incredibly Storm favored.
Yeah.
It was Resolution playing the Storm mid. He got a solo kill on the Bloodseeker, and then he killed him again. The matchup is... It's better for Storm, because if you look at his nukes, Remnant is probably the most cost-efficient spell in Dota. You do 140 damage for 70 mana. You do double your mana cost in damage, and the radius is big enough so that you can catch people. Whereas if you take a look at the Queen of Pain, the Shadow Strike is 16 seconds. Like, it's not very strong, and it only ticks 5 times. So a Bloodseeker can just hop in and out, kite, but with the Storm being able to constantly pressure with Static Remnant plus Overload, it's nearly impossible for...
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. That the burst damage is more preferable against a Bloodseeker than damage over time, right?
Yeah.
Like, the damage is so heavily mitigated by the fact that, yeah, you Shatter Strike and you right-click him sometimes, but if he's Blood Rage and right-clicking creeps correctly, if he's actually getting the last hits, he doesn't care about the damage over time that he's feeling. Whereas Remnant puts you in that sort of, like, danger zone where it's like, if I miss this last hit, I could die.
Was this the matchup, actually, CTY versus Resolution? I think it was, actually. I think it was CTY.
That might have been.
Because I remember it was a really... It had to have been, because it was either Vici or... and I don't think it's a superhero. It might be. He might... I'm not sure. It's pretty irrelevant. All I know is that the matchup is strong for Storm. Like, I played... Because remember, yesterday I was like, I've only played this matchup fight.
That's right.
So it's definitely Storm favored.
All right, so we are going to have, like, Banana be this Darkseer, and then June is going to be the solo offlane up against DDC and Juggernaut. This is a perfectly acceptable lane for a Clockwork, right? Like, he's able to deal with Dazzle. It's just a right-clicking harassment hero, and the Juggernaut can't really get to you because of cogs most of the time.
Yeah, this is really interesting. ROTK's offlane Pugna. I'm almost certain this was in response to the general picks, and it was like a we'll just make this work kind of thing. But what are your thoughts on it? Would you ever do? I know you're the offlane player out of the two of us, so
I've actually seen the Pugna run offlane
really?
once or twice in competitive play. But I do agree with you. It feels like the pick is oftentimes just like, okay, we need a Pugna, and the like general drafting decision, but it now just like is kind of forced into a offlane position. I feel like this specifically the matchup that he's dealing with, he should be dying. Right? Like, Moo, it's a long lane. You're able to really take advantage of the fact that you've got a blink. In fact, you're going to see them challenge RTK right now. They still have the Fissure ready to go. RTK is actually doing really well, though. I mean, his right-click damage is forcing back Moo handedly. And, Jesus, I mean, the Rubik joins them, and he's not really a particularly damage-dealing support, but it's just enough pressure that they can man-fight against this dual lane.
Queen of Pain also just has really bad base armor.
True.
And... you don't want to trade like he is right now. Like, ROTK got a ton of regen, and he's just blasting him.
Oh!
Wow. This is brutal.
That was super close. Lanham still comes in, takes away half of that health potion, which is incredibly important, right? Because the lower that Queen of Pain stays, CTY feels way more comfortable in his matchup against Rabbit.
He's already got plus 20 damage. I was actually just about to make that point, and then you took away my job. But CTY might actually just kill him here. Oh,
Rabbit.
He doesn't have enough bottle charges. He doesn't have mana for this.
One more right click. He needs another one. CTY will finally get it. CTY will drop low, but he will survive with 38 HP to survive. Oh, the rocket with Blood Rage! If one of those melee creeps is just a little bit lower, he could have gotten the last hit before the rocket came in.
Oh, that's hilarious.
That is an excellent play from June. The level 1 rocket securing the kill. I'm not even sure the level 1 rocket actually would kill him unless he was Blood Rage like that.
It would have done 50. Oh, man.
It would have been close.
That was really funny, though. But
more importantly, it was just like you said. The fact that their dueling is pressuring like that, it's not even like Rabbit. Maybe he played it a little bit suboptimal, but it was more just the fact that the Queen of Pain was so low that he was dealing 100 damage a hit and was moving at like 450 move speed. Like, you're not going to get out, especially with the nerfs to Storm's move speed.
Oh, Pugna actually picks up the kill on the Queen of Pain there.
What the?
Looks like just simple telekinesis, drop in the ward, and probably another blast. And that burst damage was enough to kill the Queen of Pain. This is working out really well for them. I just didn't imagine that the Rubik was going to be joining this Pugna, and it was going to make such a potent lane as it was. But I guess the Queen of Pain is really showing a lot of disfavor here in 2v2 scenarios. He's going to jump on ROTK now, but they don't have range for the Fishers, so no kill there. Banana's now going to join June here in the top lane. Remember, he's been kind of jungling away as a
in this mid lane too. Rabbit's going to go down for sure here. One more right click should do it, and CTY. Oh, man. Lanem is just destroying them right now.
Yeah, this is huge because CTY is now about to pick up his level 6 way ahead of the Storm Spirit, getting that ball lightning. You said last time we saw this matchup, again, more reason for the Storm Spirit to be favored. Rupture is such a potent killing ability, but it doesn't matter to a Storm Spirit most of the time.
Newbee's just frustrated. You could tell. Even on Moo's maneuver at bottom, he knew there was 0 chance that he kills the Pugna there, right? But he chased him much further than you want to. Like, they're just getting frustrated right now because the Queen of Pain shouldn't have done that. The Storm shouldn't have died in mid lane. And now everything is just kind of falling apart, I guess. It is only the early game, but still, like, you hate to see your Storm lose an easily winnable matchup. Like, we saw Resolution destroy CTY in this matchup, I think. Like, even first blooding him. And maybe that's what made the difference. Like, he learned. It's like, okay, I can't actually challenge the Storm like this way. Like you do, he's a good enough player where he's.
But we also remember we talked about how Empire always carried like multiple health potions around with them.
Yeah.
And there's no way that Bloodseeker gets that kill without having that big increase in movement speed and damage.
They were so smart about that.
Oh, in June, they're going to try and go for Juggernaut. Juggernaut actually ran out of mana now. He still needs another 10. If he gets the Cogs here, he's dead. And, yep, sure enough, he gets the Cogs, traps in the Juggernaut. I love the way that June waited for that one because it's damn near impossible to get a diagonal catch with Cogs. It just almost always pushes out the hero. It's super tough. Like, if you're sitting anywhere like kind of horizontal or even diagonally to the hero.
They're trying to dive on Rabbit again.
Yeah.
Sorry, I cut you off.
No, they won't be able to make that. It's just you always push him out, right? It's just so difficult in that situation. So he waited until they were on a straight parallel plane.
Okay.
Where he has that better edge.
That's so smart. I guess if I was the Clockwork, I was just wondering why he wasn't using it immediately.
Yeah.
And I mean, you've seen my Clockwork.
Whatever, dude. Blitz is referencing a game where he beat me as a Clockwork off lane. I killed you in the off lane.
I just random now. I don't even play Storm anymore. In preparation for TI, I just played random almost every single game, just so I could get a better feel.
I'm not a good enough player, nor do I. I care enough about my MMR. I can't random.
Once you're 7, I mean, I've got a few accounts now that I just smurf on that around that range. So
yeah, once I get multiple accounts that are all 6K and above, then maybe I'll start randoming.
My account's about to hit 7K on random only. I'm pretty proud about it.
Wow, that's pretty damn good.
Yeah, but in this specific game though. This offlane Pugna is actually just destroying, and June's actually rotated to help us out.
Did they even kill him? They already have this countered. Like, there's going to be the TP, and June gets a really good set of Cogs.
Here too.
Yeah, they're going to try and go for Lana, but now already the Rupture's laid out. June can't actually run away. He tries to go for Lana, actually with a good Sonic Wave. Moo actually gets that kill, so at least they get the trade-off. Still, though.
Yeah.
That was EHOME very well prepared for a rotation. I mean, they already had their 2 supports set up defensively. I'm not sure if they expected the Queen of Pain. I think that's probably what it is. They expected the Queen of Pain to go for the kill on Pugna, but then it turns out like a Clockwork full rotates over.
They're just being outmaneuvered right now. It's actually really impressive. The thing is, Newbee is making all the plays that I'm calling, and I'm not even proud of it because what it means is it's obvious. Like, right, when I called the smoke ganks, it's just too obvious. And EHOME is recognizing that, and what they're doing is they're saying, Newbee's just getting frustrated. Like, we're just outplaying them right now. Just keep this pace going because they don't really... They're not doing anything too out of the box or anything like that. Like, they're playing into our hands right now.
Yeah.
Like, we're getting exactly what we want out of the laning phase, and I find that so interesting because if I'm making calls, it's not even that I'm being
nice
good
jump.
at it.
They're going to separate CTY. That's a beautiful play if they can actually get him. There's still the shot grave out from DDC. No, he goes for the heal instead.
Didn't even get
and
the kill.
June, oh dear, now he's ruptured up. He's got nowhere to run to. They really thought they could burst him down, but turns out CTY is just too healthy. He had a lot of magic wand charges, which he didn't even use. It wasn't even close. Clockwork, he's only got level 3 of battery assault, but I guess they just very, very much underestimated the Bloodseeker's HP.
He's doing the same build, too. He's going to go for the treads just for the tankiness and in case. And now he feels comfortable enough to go for the Midas to try to snowball. And they're going to make an attempt on his life here mid, I think. Yeah, Rabbit's going to pop the invis. He's going to wait. But he's going to be so disappointed because he sees CTY at absolute full HP. And he could be farming during this time. Like, he's going to try to wait here. Maybe he just gets, like, pissed and tries to go for it. But what can you do in this situation? Like, the Darkseer is rotating over. And Lanem isn't even that big of a target. And this is so dangerous for them. Like, Banana's... Okay, Banana spotted. Like, they know. They're even popping the in... This is so bad right now because they just...
Bananas.
They're being read like a book.
They're done for. Like, Juggernaut's going to catch him eventually. Yep, the telekinesis in the middle of the surge. And if necessary, the Omni Slash will be used, and they get that kill for the Jug.
They're just being frustrated right now. Like, there's no way they should have gone for that play. Like, they saw that 2 heroes were there. Those 2 heroes are much stronger than the 2 that Newbee had available. And then the Juggernaut even rotates in, like... Newbee's just getting mad. This is like the frustration play. Like, you saw Rabbit even ping like crazy. This is just the, why are we not doing anything? Like, you've been in that situation.
And a Midas complete for CTY. He's going to spend his full time in the jungle and give up the middle lane to Lanem, who is already level 6. So they didn't even need necessarily to give this Rubik solo experience. He's just been participating in so many kills that he's actually kept his levels up just fine.
Yeah, it's actually just really good play by CTY. Like, he almost always wins his lanes, and then he can rotate to the jungle. And it seems like he's a passive player, but it's actually not. It's just that he does such a good job in the laning phase that he can afford to be a little bit more greedy and get away with this type of play.
RTK, oh, no, that's a dazzle. That's not the Rubik from earlier, so there's no way they get this kill. It's just... Moo, he feels confident enough because he has a regeneration to throw some damage out. And then he'll heal himself back up eventually. Newbee are really gunning for kills here. They're going to lead with the hook shot onto the Juggernaut, who's going to spin his way out of this one. Rupture is going to be put on June. He's kind of stuck now. The wall placed to defend June. He needs to try and get this tower aggro off of him with the telekinesis pull back and the Rupture on top. Still not enough damage. He's actually being kept alive by the bottling play of Newbee, and they'll get this tier 1 tower now. CTY, though, has a lot of extra damage. They've already finished up the Queen of Pain and looking for more, perhaps. But with the Fisher block out, EHOME are going to be just sitting pretty with 1 kill in exchange for that tier 1 tower. Newbee just needed to force something there, and I think they're going to be happy with an exchange of any kind.
Yeah, just any sort of golden fusion at this point matters a lot because the way that things are going is that even though the score is only 3-7, it's not even that I'm biased towards either of these teams because I don't know any of their players, but it's more just that I'm a bigger fan of how EHOME is approaching this and how they're playing. Like, their methods like make a lot of sense to me, and the way that they're playing it just feels like they're in a lot more harmony and in sync. And I was actually expecting this more out of Newbee, but I mean, EHOME is just kind of farming everywhere. They're just demons on the map right now.
Yeah, you can see a very steady decline there in the net worth graph, as well as the experience as the net worth goes further and further to the favor of EHOME. They've got this free farming Juggernaut, a free farming Bloodseeker. R2K has done quite well in his lane. Those sort of graphs just show that, generally speaking, the enemy team is just being outplayed or outfarmed in some way. And at this point, Newbee may need to make something happen. The question is really, how do they do it? It's based a lot around June's Clockwork. Of course, they aren't going to be having a Blink Dagger on Sansheng anytime soon, and Darkseer is more of a passive farming offlaner than most others. So June is entirely the playmaker here, paired up with the 2 intelligence cores, but are these 3 heroes going to be enough to make the difference? As 12 minutes in, it's 3-7 to the favor of EHOME.
Yeah. You're seeing the weakness of Storm now, right? Is that if you get behind on Storm, what do you have to do? You can't really gank. It's just not safe enough because your farming potential is so high, but you can't really go around and gank at this point. But going around and farming kind of screws them over too, right? Because you just put no pressure on the map. And in a competitive game of Dota, like maybe in your standard pubs, you could go around and do whatever you want, but EHOME's just going to take advantage of this and run at you nonstop. Like they're going for the smoke right now because they recognize like there's actually no hero on Newbee that can do anything. Like you're talking about the clockwork going around the map, but he went for it 3 times already and he's died twice for it, and he's got no farm now as a result of that. And he's got no levels at the same time, which is even more important. Like I feel like as a clockwork player, you want to be at least like level 8 or 9 at this point, right? Yeah. Especially since you were against a dual lane.
It's a good response from Newbee to go ahead and 5-man down that tier 1 tower at bottom lane. Their pushing power is nowhere near the power of EHOME, who's got a Mask of Madness, Blood Rage Bloodseeker, as well as that Pugna. And EHOME are actually trying to defend both here. Maybe this is a mistake. Lonum's going to be caught out. More TPs are coming in, though. We'll see how Newbee are able to respond. Blink forward from Moo. We do have the Juggernaut ready to go with his Omni Slash, but hasn't really found a prime opportunity. CTY comes forward now with a Rupture. A lot of Newbee are still quite healthy. They're going to turn around on Juggernaut. Miss Fisher there. Hookshot being laid down on ROTK. The squishy Pugna isn't a match for the nukes of both Moo and June. Now the Omni Slash gets laid out. And CTY, he's got a lot of movement speed, but he needs to pick up this first 1 kill in order to keep himself alive.
They're stuck.
Oh, they're stuck inside these trees. The nukes are coming out. CTY is still fast enough. No, not fast enough for the Fisher. Newbee just got a great team fight as EHOME was seemingly unwilling to give up a trade of tier 1 for tier 1, trying to defend, but their defense was very disjointed and clunky. They had heroes such as Lonum caught out way before anybody else was ready on EHOME.
I just can't believe that EHOME decided to go for that defense. I think you're completely right there. They're just like, we shouldn't trade this tower. We're ahead in this game. You know, we can't give this up. This is what's going to allow them to come back. But that was what allowed them to come back into this game. It wasn't
fighting.
It's not that you lost to tier 1 towers, that you TP'd in almost 1 by 1, right? And then it wasn't even like they fought together as a unit. It was just like, I'll go in here, I'll go in there.
Yeah, that fight very easily could have gone the way of EHOME if it was just planned out and they were together a bit more. Now RTK is going to be caught here. It's the hook shot and the jump in from Rabbit, and this is the snowball factor. Storm Spirit has finally found openings, and he's actually has 3K gold, so he's going to be very close to that first item. But what is his first item? Is it Orchid versus the Juggernaut, or is Bloodstone the better option here? Because he's got to deal with a lot of offensive power, especially from that Pugna.
I think you go for the Bloodstone, almost certainly. If you go for the Orchid at this point, it's just too late. The Bloodseeker can just tech switch into a Manta style, or even, what is that item called? You can get a Manta style, or even a BKB.
Did you just bring us up a StarCraft 2 term?
Yeah, I
tech switch?
Yeah, I
kind of like it.
I say it a lot, and
really?
some people don't understand it, but
yeah. You're just talking about changing up your item builds.
Yeah, exactly. In response to something you see.
Oh, Juggernaut actually cancels TP,
no,
but so
he
does
thought
EHOME.
somebody was coming.
Oh dear. That's just classic miscommunication.
What's going on?
EHOME are falling apart before our very eyes. That's what's going on. See if they get this back, though. They're going for the tier 1 tower in the middle lane, but Rabbit's already set up to defend this one with TPs coming in. EHOME are going to be in some serious trouble. They've got 2 supports sitting behind. CTY is going to be the first target. They're going to try and blow him up immediately, but he does get a lot of heals. Hookshot still catching CTY, but managed to get the silence off. There's no cogs. CTY will be able to run himself away. RTK managed to get the Shal Grey put onto him, so he will also get out. Oh, but Rabbit, he wants some more. He's going to be able to jump in, pick up the Pugna, and looks like finish off Lonum as well. Nope, it's not enough. Looks like the weave increase in armor was enough, but now the Fisher, he actually turned around to go for the telekinesis play. I'm not sure why, but
everything right now is falling apart for
CTY. Almost just
okay. CTY really, like that was really pushing it. I was like, if the Ancients just decided, he must have been on the threshold for that hit, but
yeah,
I mean everything right now is pretty much falling apart for EHOME. They played
the weird thing is they played so carefully, and now they're just making mistakes that I'm just not used to seeing them make. Like, YJ thought somebody was TPing, and that wasn't the case at all, and he was gone. Like, he was scot-free. Nothing could cancel his Omni Slash at that point, or his Blade Fury, and then he goes for the TP out. And then that mid play where they just overcommit and think they're completely safe, and now everything is just really falling apart at the seams. Is they had a good lead. Like
they certainly did.
They had a Midas at the same time. They had built up a 4K lead, and now it feels like they're getting a little bit tilted as everything's turned around. It's
a 6,000 gold swing in the space of 4 minutes. Yeah, that can happen in one team fight mid to late game, but this early on before the 20-minute marker, 6,000 gold swing is gigantic.
It just means that you're just dying.
Yeah.
And if you're Newbee, you're incredibly satisfied all of a sudden because now you've taken the lead and you probably didn't expect that. Like, they were probably just like, okay, well, you know, we're going for this bottom push. Hopefully we take a tower. We've got to do something. And then that gets delivered into your laps.
Junum going to jump on Lanham. They do have the blood right laid out, but Lanham, he seems to be sacrificed here in exchange for this tower. He's still kept alive by the Shell Grave, and a lot of heals coming in for him all of a sudden, but there's Rabbit, jumps in, grabs Lana, makes sure he does, in fact, die. EHOME are still sticking around as a 4-man group, though. Rabbit's going to try and pop
he's
RTK.
Got the Iron Shell, too.
Yeah, there goes the Sonic Wave. They actually get the Dazzle in the background. Moo, but Moo gets blown up by the Omni Slash. Another blood right laid out. If these heroes drop low enough, the Bloodseeker can go ham, and it's not going to be enough, it seems. They've got enough sustain and just naturally tanky heroes that the Bloodseeker can't actually pop any of them. He goes for Banana now, and they do catch the Juggernaut at the same time, so it's a 1-for-1 trade-off. CTY, despite the fact that June is very low, won't be able to go for that kill.
Man, and EHOME again, it really just feels like, I mean, Newbee had the advantage. Like, for anybody curious or is just tuned in or is wondering why I kept saying that they had the advantage, they did, but now they're just taking fights one by one that, or EHOME is taking fights like one by one that they shouldn't, because CTY has so much farm that I think they're just getting way too overconfident in their ability to take these fights.
Do you think that the mindset of what this draft was, which was, okay, we're going to do a lot of 5-manning and a lot of pushing down towers, do you think that's kind of getting to them a little bit, where they're like, okay, we threw, you know, that one really big advantage at bottom lane trying to defend, and our whole entire lineup is built on taking towers before them. We've lost our advantage. We need to gain it back by, you know, 5-manning and actually reclaiming some control. But they're just doing it perhaps a little bit too early. Like 5-manning into that middle tier 1 tower twice now and losing 2 different fights for it quite heavily. The EHOME are going to be scrambling to catch up.
I think I've said it in the past. If you're against a lineup that you're afraid to play against later on in the game, it's not about just non-stop looking for fights. It's about taking smart fights. Because you're not going to get very many opportunities. And it kind of sounds BS. You're like, well, why should EHOME's lineup only have like 1 chance to make a slip-up? But it wasn't even like it was a small slip-up. Like, they lost 5 heroes, a tower, and then they did it again. So whatever opportunities they had are really just kind of getting thrown under the bus, and they're going to run into each other here. And I'm not even sure how the fight is favored. Is Sansheng. He's got a Blink Dagger, but he's going to get initiated on.
Hookshot managed to catch in 2 with June. Well, he's probably going to be going down to CTY. That BKB is tearing him a new one. RTK actually being kept alive by the Shao Gray, plus the Drain Rabbit, though, is plenty healthy. It's 2 heroes down on the side of Newbee for EHOME's 1, but the Rabbit comes back in, is able to finish off RTK. He goes down. Rabbit actually still has enough mana to get out. A big ball lightning jump, and actually has enough mana thanks to his Bloodstone charges. He can make another one if he was chased down.
He's got a DD on the Iron Shell. I think he wants to get into a fight. He sees the Mask of Madness popped at the same time.
This is a perfect opportunity for them to blow up the Juggernaut with a Sonic Wave on top. Rabbit just simply makes a TP out right in front of 2 heroes who do not have a stun. Newbee just finding all of these openings and exploiting them time and time again, because they now have that advantage and they know they've got such a great mid-game team fight lineup that they can easily just wreck this. EHOME, despite the fact that we're talking about like a lot of 5-manning and such, they can go late game, right? Like, there's not that much pressure on them to end the game by, you know, 35 minutes or something like that. They've got a Juggernaut and Bloodseeker late game.
I don't think they can go late game.
No?
You're against, in mid, Lanham, if he dies here.
Yeah, he actually gets the telekinesis, so unfortunately, Rabbit still has enough mana to make a ball lightning jump, so not jumping in, but Echo Slam being able to lay out, knock out 2 immediately, and CTY now trapped inside the cog. CTY will be able to get the kill, though, on June, try to TP away, but no such luck. He's still got the Rupture as well, so he can actually, nope, can't catch Sansheng. He blinks ahead, so CTY is still getting a good amount of farm. Like, he is the one hero who actually is staying ahead of Newbee. He's got 12,000 net worth. This game is entirely on his shoulders, I feel.
Yeah. The way that, I guess that I'm thinking about it anyways, is if you look at the whoever has the more mobile cores is the ones that can set up how they want to take the fight.
Okay.
So if you see EHOME's lineup and, oh, CTY is going to get initiated on here.
Yeah, they do have the healing ward. Maybe that'll keep CTY alive, but never mind. Once again, a Sonic Wave comes in, and Juggernaut, he almost dies too. They almost right-click him down as he Blade Fury and TP's out. It would have been a huge loss if both of their cores had died, but just CTY by himself, I mean, he's worth so much. RTK now going to be jumped on as well. This just goes from bad to worse. I mean, it's one pick-off into multiple now. As all these mobile heroes, as you were kind of saying about the late game, you're already seeing the power of that right here at 22 minutes. They're able to set up the fights they want.
Because the thing is, we talked about this early game. If you're not going to pick a counter to Storm, then you have to win the fights. Like you said it best, right? Is that you either just overwhelm the Storm where you can't really do anything from that 20-minute mark up until that 20-minute mark, and so you want to take those fights and win them and just build up a big enough advantage. But EHOME doesn't have a big enough advantage at this point where Rabbit is pressured at all. Like, this is like the dream Storm game. There's just one disable on the enemy team. Like, how happy are you to see that? Like, the Bloodseeker silence doesn't count because it's so exaggerated and obvious when it counts, and so he actually has nothing to worry about. Like, in every fight, he's just like, I'll do whatever I want.
Yeah. It's like the next time that EHOME actually have something versus Newbee would be like them getting Scythe of Ice on Pugna and a Abyssal on Juggernaut. And it's like so far out there. Like, he's got a good 20, like a solid chunk of 20 minutes to basically run this game for Newbee.
Yeah. Do you remember, I really don't like referencing pub games in my cast, but do you remember when we played a game against Illidan?
Yeah.
And we were super far behind, and he was like a 6-slotted Bloodseeker at like 40 minutes. And I was like a Storm with like half that net worth, and we still won, right? It's just because the hero naturally counters it. It's like half the net worth of Bloodseeker, or half the net worth of Storm Spirit just destroys Bloodseeker, because you always will get the jump on the Bloodseeker.
And the Bloodseeker is a hero.
Oh,
so
the full man jump on
burst.
Top is YJ. He spots him out with that ward up there. He just can't. He went from the river cap all the way over here. That's like a pub move that I make. You know, that's the mentality. He just doesn't care anymore. He's like, there's nothing that can kill me. Like, I actually don't even care.
I mean, he didn't really have much vision of the enemy team. He just had vision of the Juggernaut. That's all he had. And he was like, nope, that's still enough.
That's pretty much all I need. Look at that. They're running. He's by himself. Like, his entire team is showing. And typically when this happens, this is not when you want to gank. Yeah. But they're running from him. Oh, boy. Rabbit. Just going ham.
EHOME now going to try and set up a fight for this bottom lane. You know the Storm Spirit's going to be here, though. I mean, he gets so much mana regeneration. Moo actually made the blink and didn't actually... So there is a way, for those of you guys who don't know, you can blink, and if you immediately run afterwards, you can dodge the rupture damage because it's 1,300. The range is 1,300. So essentially, it's 1,300 over 0.25 seconds. So essentially, the Queen of Pain can move over 1,300 range if she does a max blink, and it is immediately moving afterwards. I think the same thing actually works if you move immediately before your blink, because it just kind of, like, you have to stop, move a little bit, and blink at the same time sort of thing. But essentially, you can dodge the rupture damage. It's just a very technical maneuver you have to pull.
This Jug is going for... In my opinion, I really like to justify players' builds, but once he saw that the Storm is going for the Orchid, I feel like he should just change his Yasha into a Manta instead. Because then you can't die, but in this situation you can in CT.
Oh my god! That is 3 heroes jumping instantly onto 1, and now with the Vacuum Wall follow-up plus the Sonic Wave, Newbee are just getting wombo combos and making it look easy. I mean, they literally just didn't lose any HP in that fight. It was a slaughter. EHOME lose 3 heroes, and now the tier 3 is under siege.
I don't even think that they're not standing far back enough.
Like, Bottom is too close. Okay, EHOME had just lost it. They know it's over. It's so far over. So 28-14, Newbee do strike back in this game number 2 and make it an even series, 1-1.
If you're for anybody that wants to know, the reason why I know that's not far enough is because I played enough pub games. Like, your only core that can deal with the Storm is dead. I would go, you're just like, you can't prevent it. What is the Jug going to do? Omnislash? You actually have to sit, if you're curious, on the other tier 3 tower side. It's insane.
It's like Fountain or Tier 3.
Yeah,
like,
you just can't
Storm Spirit will dive you all over the base, because what does he care about towers? You could just ball lightning.
Yeah,
dodge
exactly.
him.
Rabbit just... I mean, this is what happens when you don't pick stuns.
Yeah. So EHOME, perhaps a little bit of drafting error. I think, well, actually, we shouldn't necessarily call it drafting error, because it was really good prime opportunity for them to pick this Storm Spirit, right?
Yeah.
Like, they picked up the Queen of Pain, and you're like, oh, look, here's our mid and everything. And then they picked up the second intelligence core, which I think came as a huge surprise to EHOME. So it was good drafting decision by Newbee. EHOME just didn't recover it well enough in both the draft and the playstyle. Like, if they want to go for this 5-man, push style, that's fine. They just cannot force bad fights.
Yeah, that bottom fight, I hate to say it because, Dota's a game that's really dynamic, but that bottom fight it turned everything. Like, the mid fight after that, I felt like didn't even matter. It was just that one engagement at bottom where they lost 5 heroes, they gave up the tower, and they just... Rabbit went from just having treads to having, like, 3,300... I was like, all right, that's...
Yeah.
That's the comeback.
So well played by Newbee, making this an even series and showing that despite the fact that they were the TI4 champions, there was a lot of people questioning their invite. They're certainly showing that they can hang around here and are not going to be a 0-16 team. So another even series, another 1-1. They're just all over the place. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll have EHOME facing up against Vici Gaming.